Hey everybody, Big Lyle back with another great one. Three of them actually. I'm going to be a one and a one part, a two part. So I showed this comic book when I was on Not Near Mint's um, YouTube channel a couple of weeks ago, and I'll just show you the book, a little bit on the inside, and I'll give you the information, and I'll pause it, and I'll get going with the other stuff, which will amaze you. So the first book I'm going to show you is True Comics, number 55, from December 10th, 1946. This here is the first appearance of Sad Sack in the comic book. He actually made a first appearance in Tip Top Comics number 123 from 1946, 2 months prior to this in the USO ad. This was his first comic book appearance. So I'll show you a little bit in here. I don't open it up very often. And the back cover shows a Lionel train. Look how clear the colors are on it. Love it. And let's see here. I'll give you a little bit of information on it first. So True Comics number 55 from December 10th, 1946. It was the first appearance of Sad Sack in a comic book, and it was done by George Baker, who was born in 1915 and he passed in 1975. This comic book was published by a company called Parents Magazine Press, which was their debut in the comic book industry was in 1941. But the stories in this one had the stories inside were Seagoing Santa, Career in Canvas, which was about the famous boxer Mickey Walker, who was also known as the Toy Bulldog. He was born in 1901 and he passed in 1981. He was a welterweight from 1922 to 26, and he was a middleweight from 1926 to 1931. The other story in here was called Cities of Destiny, features a spotlight on Kansas City. And the Sad Sack was a half a page appearance where the character returns from war only to find he has no place to sleep. Okay, so the market value I found for this one, that in low grade 4.0 is $116 to $190 US. Mid grade VF at 8.0, $390 to $576 US. CGC recently sold one, a 7.0 for $495 US. So some of the artists in here was also George Baker and Jack Sparling. And Jack Sparling was a Canadian. He was born in Winnipeg. So Jack Sparling, he did the interior art. He was born in 1917. He died in 1997. And the fellow who did the scripts and the writing, Louis Wolfe, Wolfe, was born in 1905 and he died in 1985. This was a 52-pager. So the other stories in here were called Rebels in the North, which was about Confederate bank robbers. And let's see. So I was looking up to see what some of Jack Sparling's first works were. And his first works were in 1939 for gag cartoons. He also did a syndicated strip called Hopper, 1941 to 43. He did Clairvoyant, 1943 to 48. So Parents Magazine Press entered the comic book market in 1941, and these were educational comics. The founder was George Hecht. I think that's how you pronounce it, Hecht. He was born in 1895 and he passed in 1980. Some of the other titles that fell under the Parents Magazine Press were True Comics from 1941 to 1950, Real Heroes, 1941 to 46, Calling All Girls and Calling All Boys. There was no date for that. Polly Pigtails was in the late 1940s, and True Aviation Picture Stories, no date. So it must have been like an annual. So these had the True Comics 55 had a print run at about 500,000 copies by 1946, because when the company started in 1941, because of the paper shortages for the war, they had a print run of 300,000. So despite the high print run, high-grade copies are very scarce. In 2026, census data for True Comics number 1 from 1941 shows 10 copies graded, only known to exist. So when they have these runs in the 40s, or between 300 and 500,000 copies, the ones from the first one, number 1 from 41, had a print run of 300,000, and it sold out within 10 days. CGC does indicate that issue number 55 is scarce. As of this writing, which is March 26th, there are 36 total graded copies on CGC, and they're all blue labels. There is one graded a 2.0 pedigree. It was the Okajima pedigree. This was recognized as a pedigree by CGC in 2000. So on September 17th, 2023, CGC 2.0, the Okajima pedigree, sold at Heritage Auctions, auction number 7341, lot number 94173. It sold for $600 US. So compare that to non-pedigree. The non-pedigree ones, this was for issue 55. For the non-pedigree ones, graded an 8.0, sold March of 2025 for $576 US. A recent sale by My Comic Shop. Can't find my bell here. It is. My Comic Shop. A 7.0 sold for $495. And another recent sale by Price Charting, a 6.5 sold for $530. And a 5.0 in January of 2025 through Heritage Auctions sold for $216. So I'm going to be right back. I just got to prepare my other books. So before I start with the rest of part 2, I just wanted to show you in True Comics number 55 that half a page of Sad Sack is right here, right there. Thought I would show that. I'll be right back. All right. Now they got everything squared away here and all my notes. Hopefully I don't screw up. So we were talking about Sad Sack's first appearance in True Comics number 55. But he did make his first appearance in Tip Top 123 in a USO ad. So This was 1946. So way before that, Sadsack made his first appearance June 17th, 1942, in a magazine called Yank the Army Weekly. So what I have here to show you is the anniversary issue of June 17th, 1942. But this one is dated June 25th, 1943, was the actual anniversary issue of Yank the Army Weekly magazine. And it features on the cover Sergeant George Baker's art of Sadsack on the cover. So this is Sadsack's first cover appearance in Yank the Army Weekly. These are extremely, extremely scarce. And there's a lot of information I'm going to give you about it. I'm not going to take it out of the bag. I mean, it is dated 1943. I'm just not going to chance it. So then there's this one. So this one was June 25th, 1943. So 12 days earlier, Yank the Army Weekly, the UK edition, came out June 13th, 1943. First of all, before I get a little bit further, this is Volume 2, Number 1. The UK edition of June 13th, 1943 was Volume 1, Number 52. So this one was the last appearance. This was the last appearance of Yank the Army Weekly in 1943 for the UK. And a week after that, they came out with the British edition of this one with the same cover, just at a different price. Instead of the 5 cents, they had 3 cents for the UK. This is the British one. Volume 1, Number 52. And there's a lot of history, so I'll have to read you some stuff first, and then I'll go back and forth. And because the information that I've been searching for the last couple of weeks, the information is like US edition, UK edition. It's all over the place. So I had to write it out that way. So I have quite a few pages. So I'll just give you what I have, and then I'll open up the UK edition and I'll show you some stuff. So the Sadsack, of course, was the first cover appearance of Sadsack in the anniversary issue. And they were 24 pages. They were done by Sergeant George Baker. He was born in 1915 and he died in 1975. The editor of Yank the Army Weekly was Joe McCarthy, born 1915 and he died 1980. So notable contributions to Yank the Army Weekly in the anniversary issue was an artist named Bill Keane, Keane, was born in 1922 and died in 2011. He was the creator to the comic strip called The Family Circus. And they had sketch artists in there, Robert Greenhalgh, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, 1915, 2017, he was 102, and Howard Brody, 1915 to 2010. And they had Frank Powalny, 1901, 1986. He was the photographer for Yank the Army Weekly. So yes, I'm just going through my notes here. So the UK one, this is what the back cover looks like. This is a significant wartime issue produced specifically for U.S. forces stationed in the UK. It features Sadsack and the works of Jack Coggins, artist-author. They also had updates on the Royal Canadian Air Force and the United States Army Air Force bombing campaigns. the feature, the issue published, the UK one, it says in the information I found that the issue was published 1 week before the famous first appearance and anniversary issue, but the dates say 12 days. So you can believe it being 7 days or 12 days. Those are the two things I could find. But the UK edition featured a pinup girl named Marjorie Lord. And she was born 1918 and she died in 2015. Later, she became famous for her TV show role, Make Room for Daddy, which was renamed The Danny Thomas Show, from September 29th, 1953 to April 27th, 1964. But the U.S. edition featured Betty Grable, who was born in 1916 and she passed in 1973. This was one of Betty Grable's major appearances in this magazine. So the UK edition, volume 1, number 52, from 1943, features U.S. soldier or military operations, specifically in Britain or North Africa, with troops stationed there. And the UK edition, this is the final issue of the first volume for the UK. The next issue, which I mentioned earlier, volume 2, number 1, famous first anniversary issue. So the very first appearance of Sad Sack in the UK Yank the Army Weekly was November 8th, 1942. Volume 1, number 1. I can't find that issue anywhere. I've looked. I scoured the internet. And anyway, I'll be right back. Got to get some more notes. So also that the artist Jack Coggins was known as Jack Banham Coggins, 1911, and he passed in 2006. So the American edition of Yank the Army Weekly, they had a print run of 2.6 million copies, which were spread around to 21 different weekly editions printed in 17 countries, including the British, Mediterranean, and the Western Pacific. By 1943, the United States had 7 million personnel. By 1945, 3 out of 4 issues were bought by overseas troops. Despite millions of copies printed, these are scarce today. Now, what I could find about the current value about them, the UK edition ones were printed in London, England, and they had a print run of 100,000 because they were being constantly bombed by Germany. I mean, it's a wonder they were able to do a whole lot with the London Blitz. So the ones in the UK that have the 3D on them, like this issue here, I'll show you, it has 3D on it. That one sells between 25 and 45 British pounds. So if you have the anniversary or other key issues, they sell between $75 and $150 or British pounds. So to try and to do a transfer on what it would be today in US dollars, so the standard issues, they sell between $30 and $60 US. The key issues and the anniversary issues, again, they sell for they say between $75 and $150 plus. And the 3D that they had on this one is equivalent to 1 British pound today, and the 5-cent one that they had on this issue up here, damn glare, the 5-cent one, that one is equivalent to $4.03 today. So CGC does not grade these. I inquired because they're too big. They're 10 inches across by 13 and a half inches high, and it's too big. So some other tidbits that I found is interesting. So I looked up to see if the information and the collectors I spoke with could give me more tidbits of information on the Army Weekly. So what I found out was the only for GIs rule was that Yank, the Army Weekly, was legally forbidden from being sold to civilians during the war. It was produced by the War Department, and they didn't want the public or Congress to see unfiltered griping of soldiers. So this makes any copy found today a piece of contraband that survived the trip home in a duffel bag. Also, which I never even took notice of SADSAC, but it says that in nearly all of George Baker's Yank strips of SADSAC, including Volume 1, number 52, and Volume 2, number 1, SADSAC never speaks. He is a pantomime character. It wasn't until True Comics number 55 and later issues in the Harvey series that he began using speech bubbles. So one of the actors, artists. He wasn't just an artist and an author. He was an illustrator, Jack Coggins. He did what you call stealth art. He wasn't just an illustrator. He was a correspondent who often went on actual bombing raids over Germany. And he was there during the London Blitz, so it gave him a lot of material to draw and do characters and have stories. So in the True Comics one, Parent Magazine Press went from trying to sell the monthly comic books being published to a subscription company. And you'll know, just to save money, and you'll find that a lot of these True Comics have got a subscription crease in them. And finding any that doesn't have a subscription crease is a massive rarity and worth a huge premium. Mine doesn't have a subscription crease, but it was subscribed because it's got the tag on it. But it wasn't folded. So there's no folds on mine. So I don't know if anybody is aware of this, because when I found this information out, I was very surprised, because there's some tidbits that came up with Yank the Army Weekly that I was completely unaware of. That there was a fellow staff cartoonist that worked for them. He was born in 1908, died in 1970. His name was Dave. It's either Bregger or Breger, Breger. I'm assuming it's Bregger. So he drew a comic character called G.I. Joe. So according to the information I have, this is actually G.I. Joe's first, I don't have it, his first appearance in Yank the Army Weekly, and none before, was Volume 1, Number 1 of June 17th, 1942. So having both SADSAC and G.I. Joe debuted in the same magazine is a double whammy for pulp culture history. So in the British one, just a little patient here, because there's a lot of information. If I could find it for you, I'd love to show it to you. So, G.I. Joe, this here is from June 13th, 1943. You're going to see the G.I. Joe in the corner up here. And let me just see if I can find it here. And the sad sack one, nothing tore. Let's have some papers on my desk. There's this one. So it says G.I. Joe was actually popularized in the pages of Yank the Army Weekly by Dave Bredger. He was known as Joe Trooper, and at the request of Yank's editors, the name was changed. So G.I. Joe had an identical twin named Private Bredger. The two Joes, there was a story in here called The Two Joes Conflict. By 1943, Bredger was a commissioned second lieutenant because Yank had a strict policy of only publishing works by enlisted men. Bredger could no longer contribute to the magazine. He moved to Stars and Stripes, where it continued until spring of 1944. So for the people out there that are interested in all of this, the history of the word GI, well, GI first came out, they figure, in early 1900s, and it stood for galvanized iron, which were stamped on metal trash cans and buckets. By World War I, GI stood for government issue or general issue, and by 1935 it was documented as a slang term for American enlisted men. And Joe was known as an average Joe or an everyday man. So by 1942, the birth of G.I. Joe, Dave Bredger, is credited by the Oxford English Dictionary and the Library of Congress as the first to fuse these two terms into the character named G.I. Joe. And that's all the information I have for you. That took me a day and a half or more to find out. So if there's anybody out there that has any more information about it, just add it in the comments. It'd be greatly appreciated. I'll add it to my catalog. I hope you like this. This was a monumental endeavor. Let me tell you, it was unbelievable. Anyway, thank you very much for listening and watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if I can find any more information about it to be helpful to the masses that collect the stuff, I will make another video. So thank you very much for tuning in, and may God bless. Have a good day.